Hey there everybody, welcome to another episode of Bert's Bike. Today we're going to talk about the break-in service or the 600-mile service on my BMW R18. What maintenance items are covered, what does the dealership actually do, the cost of the materials, and how the first service compares to other bikes that I've owned. And lastly, should you take it to a dealer or do it yourself? Alright, let's jump into it. So what's covered under that first service? So if we look at our trusty owner's manual, it'll show you exactly what needs to be done on that first service. And namely, the things that need to be done are, they need to perform a vehicle test and diagnostic. They set the service date, engine and oil filter change, angular gearbox oil, I believe that's the final drive, and check the front and rear brake fluid, tire pressure and tread depth, spoke tension, and then lighting and the signal system, and the final inspection and the road safety check. And lastly, confirming the BMW service in the literature. And for those of you that don't know, in your manual there is a service stamp section here in the back where the dealer actually puts their stamp and the date of service on that. And this is really good if you are really concerned about your warranty and showing where you got that service date. All right, so what does the dealership actually do? Well, I have my service records and I'll share with you what they actually did to my bike. So there's a visual check of the brake, hydraulic lines, the exhaust system, engine and transmission, the suspension, the steering, the final drive chain, the battery, including the condition of the battery, the clutch and hydraulic lines, wheel spoke tension, I guess. The next thing are the fluids, so oil leaks, fuel leaks, engine oil level, the brake and clutch hydraulic fluid level and condition of it, coolant leaks, no coolant on this motorcycle. So the last thing they do is a road test, and that's the lights and signals, the brake performance, the shifting, clutch, instrument panel, gear indicator, heated features, heated grips. Mine has heated grips. I can actually say they did that because when I got the bike back, the heated grips were on. Operation of the switches, clutch, brake, side stand, switch, all that stuff. The horn, the body paint and trim and windscreen, I guess. So a lot of extra stuff here. They also inspect your tires for you and the brake pads, I guess, there. So they have my tire pressures in and my tire pressures out. So what I had in there and then what they set it to. The next thing too is they check the tread depth on my tires and then I guess the brake pad depth. So still got a whole lot of that. It's only the first service. All right, so that's it for the multi-point inspection. So the next thing is materials and labor and what they charge for it. So I have my bill of sale, and now let's go through all these little items here. So the first thing is there's an oil filter, obviously. That is $22.78. There is a gasket ring for $1.88. The motor oil, it's Advantech, I guess 15W, there's nothing else there. And it's 5 units of that, whatever that means, at $19.25. So that comes out to $96.25. A gasket O-ring, that's $2.02. Another O-ring, that's I guess for the final drive, that's $1.30. And then you have the high point axle oil G3. I believe that's the final drive oil. And that is at $73.58. That is 1 unit here, so just a total of $73.58. And then it also says here, they perform the run-in service on the vehicle. So I guess that covers the diagnostic and all that kind of stuff. And there's no charge for that line item. So all in all, it comes to $379.31 before tax. And then there's an added shop supplies for $18.15. And then the tax was $37.96, which comes out to a grand total of $435.42. And my particular dealership charges for credit cards. I actually had an extra $13 on that. So I'm not gonna count that, but you know, I can see with the economy being what it is nowadays, a lot of people are gonna be enforcing that credit card fee. So they don't end up absorbing that. Unfortunately, the consumer has to absorb that now. So the total due is $435.42. So, all right. When I bought this bike, I knew that the service would be a little bit more than a standard Japanese motorcycle. And in fact, I was pretty nervous because you hear horror stories all the time about people buying sort of like a high-end bike and then they go to the dealership and the service is just astronomical. I saw online where people were paying anywhere or being asked to pay anywhere from $350 all the way up to like $700 plus for this first service. So naturally, doing a little bit of calling around, I found that the dealerships in my area were about the same, really. They, said, well, obviously we can't promise you what the final price would be, but it's around, $350 to $400, around that. And, one dealership was about $400 to $450. I would say that's the median price that you should be expecting to pay for this motorcycle. It's not high or low in my opinion, and I'll tell you why. I have the service records for my other motorcycles that I've owned in the past. And some of my motorcycles I did the servicing myself, but some of them I took to the dealership, and these are two of them. So these motorcycles were, namely, my old Kawasaki W800 and CB300R as well, what I paid for that. So let's talk about that. So to compare, let's compare it. The CB300R was about $288 for a full first service. So don't get confused your first service with your first oil change, because a lot of dealers will do the first service but only really do the oil change and just a visual inspection. They don't really go through it top to bottom. Now, what I've noticed is BMW actually has their own printout for their models specifically, and it seems that the dealers need to follow that to the letter. So that's pretty cool, actually. A lot of dealerships that I've kind of questioned and what they do for the first service kind of leave stuff out. And if you're paying for a service and you're actually telling the dealership you want the actual service that the manufacturer requires, they should do that to the letter, especially if they're charging you for it. So my CB300R was $288, which I thought at the time was pretty high. And this was actually in 2019, I believe. I'm not exactly sure. And then my W800 was $258.07. And then the BMW, like I said, was $435.42. So that is more. And that is actually about $147 and some change more than the CB, and $177 and some change more than the W800. Now, you could say that that's a lot more, but BMW does change two oils, the engine oil and the final drive, and they have a more specialized service and diagnostics in general. So I'm taking that into an account slightly. So I'm actually curious to see if anybody is out there who's paid for a first service for like a Honda Shadow or something that has like the bevel drive as well, if they change that fluid in that first service or not. So I'd like to see that. I'd also like to see if anybody wants to comment below on what the first service is for their Harley motorcycle. And I believe the Harleys have like a 3-hole oil change and fluid change. I'm not exactly sure, but it'd be interesting to post what that would be from a dealership below. So was this what I was expecting price-wise? Well, actually, I was expecting it to be more like in the $600, $750 range, which in my opinion would just been a little bit too much. So with all this said, should you do the service on your own BMW R18 or any motorcycle for that matter? And the answer is yes. Yes, you should. You should definitely try to be doing as much service as you can by yourself, provided that you have the time to do it. Will I do my own moving forward? And honestly, that answer is it depends. But truthfully, after living with the R18 and getting to know it some, the maintenance items are relatively easy and very straightforward. So the things preventing me from doing it is, one, time. I work a lot of hours not doing moto vlogging, doing other things. So when I get a day off, I typically like to enjoy my day off or go out actually riding and filming content for the channel. Another thing is, most of the tools that I have are, standard metric tools. So I'd have to, the R18 takes a lot of Torx bits and all that kind of stuff, and so you'll have to buy that. The other thing too is you'll need to buy some kind of diagnostic reader, something that you can reset the service lights and read the codes off the bike. And all that costs money, and obviously buying that on the front end will save you money in the long run. So it just depends if you have the time and tools to do your own service without rushing through it. The next service on this bike has the valve clearance at 6,000 miles. So if I do it myself, I might actually do the oil changes myself and then kind of pay somebody or pay the shop to show me how to do the valve clearances. So that's kind of my plan for now, but we'll see what happens when we get there. Of course, I'll update you guys when I get to 6,000 miles, and I'm sure you'll see a bunch of other videos before that point. So again, I'm just really loving this R18, and I'm loving making the videos about this motorcycle. So anyway, I hope you liked the video. I hope this helped you out in some way, shape, or form. If it has, please like and subscribe and leave a comment below. This is Bert's Bike, and I'll catch you on the next one.